kind of like being divorced in a sense, right? And having your parents or having your ex and your kids move to a completely different location. You see them very rarely.
Yeah, basically what it is, you leave your gun and badge and your credentials in the office. The only thing you're out there with is your fake ID. That's the only thing you're out there with. The only contact with your agency is with your contact agent and maybe your supervisor. That's your contact. Uh, my family lived across the country. Uh, when I started the operation in New York.
When you say across the country, we're talking West Coast then?
Yeah. The operation started in New York and they were out west. Yeah.
I mean, for our listeners, just think about that. Think about the dedication and the sacrifice it takes that you're leaving. You got 3 kids, you got your wife, and you're leaving them. You're not leaving them in another part. You're working in New York City and they're across the river in Jersey. You got them on the other side of the freaking country. I mean, you got birthdays, you got family events, you got all the things that we all enjoy doing.
I missed everything.
Yeah, you can't do a thing.
I'll tell you a story. In my residence where my family was living, we had a hello phone.
Mm-hmm.
For when I did get home, because once you're in with these guys, you have to maintain contact all the time. So whenever I would get home, which would be every maybe 5-6 months, I'd get home. I'd tell them. They thought I had a girlfriend in California. So I say, hey, I'm going to go visit my girlfriend in California. Well, I'd have to go to California and then take a plane to where my family was. So my youngest daughter was making her communion. So I'm home and I get a call from New York, and it's you got to get to Miami. You got to be in Miami at the airport at X time to pick us up. We're coming in to do a piece of work. So now my daughter's making her communion. I got to be in Miami the next morning. That means I got to take a red eye from where I am to get to Miami. I got to leave my daughters and not make the communion. I do that. I get to Miami. I go to the airport. The flight comes in, and they're not on it. So I call New York, and I say, what the F is going on? I'm at the airport. Nobody's here. Oh, it got canceled. And you don't call and tell me? Well, we figured you'd been in Miami. You're in Miami anyway, so, And what they were doing, they were going down there to hit somebody, clip somebody, and the hit got called off. So that's the stuff you got to put up with,
As you said it right, you said the life. If you live the life, I mean, that's 24/7, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's 24/7. I mean, when you're in deep cover, you don't take off the holidays.
Yeah, there's no paid time off. There's no weekends. Hey,
Yeah.
But roll back a little bit because everybody I know on all of these podcasts, because you've been on a lot of them, they want to jump into the story. But I think one of the biggest untold stories, the toll it takes on you and the family is what's the conversation like with your wife when you're taking this assignment? And then as it keeps going on, I mean, how much harder does it get to keep the marriage together, the family together, that your kids even recognize you, where you don't have to be fingerprinted and have your face, taken off the back of a milk carton to prove that you are who you are? At what point did that really start weighing on you?
Well, first of all, let me back up a little bit, is that you can't go into these assignments to try to get away from anything. And what I mean by that is you can't go into these assignments because you don't like the squad you're working on. You don't get along with your squad mates. You don't like your supervisor. You're having problems with your spouse or your mate or whoever. Uh, so you don't go into these assignments because you're running away from something, because it just gets worse. So I took these assignments uh, be, because my wife knew that I loved what I was doing. And when I say, but I loved the FBI, I loved working. Uh, I was good at undercover. Uh, the, the difference between, I think, and I don't, I'm not blowing my horn, but I think the difference between me and a lot of undercovers, I didn't fall in love with working undercover. I just was good at it. You know what I mean? Um, Anytime an operation was over, for me, it was over. Uh, that's just the way I operated. And I went on to the next assignment.
Was I know so you talk about how you're able to kind of distance yourself from it, but isn't there a danger though, is that some people become addicted to the life they like, the kind of power, the money that's flashed around, the perks that you get, the respect that you get, doors open for you. I mean, some people, like you say, become addicted to the perks that go with it instead of realizing that that's just part of the job. Your job is to be the UC. It's not to be the one of, the bad guy in training.
Right.
Exactly. And I think I think a lot of it has to do with, like I said before, is where I grew up. I grew up around this life, so it wasn't anything that was anonymous for me. I seen what these guys could do, what they did, and I wasn't kicked in the ass about being a gangster. Uh, and I think, yeah, a lot of undercovers get lost in that. You know, they like the idea that they're on their own, they're out, they're this, they're so not reporting to anybody, etc. But look, that I much would have rather have been home, but I wasn't. So, and that is a problem. You get a guy or a gal that that grew up cloistered. Well, you put him out there in a big city, or uh, with the flash and the cash. Give you an example. When I first started, I had a Cadillac. Right, I bought a Cadillac. Once I got in, now I'm living in New York City. Uh, Once I got in with these guys, I sold my Cadillac. I sold my car. And they said, Donnie, why, I mean, I gave the car back to the FBI, but, they said, I told them, hey, I'm selling this car. Why? Well, number one, it's costing me, at that time, 200 and some dollars a month to put it in the garage under my apartment. When I come downtown, I got to fight for a parking space somewhere. What the hell do I need a car for? I don't go anywhere. If I need a car, I'll borrow one.
Oh no, hell, you got the skills. You'll just go steal one. You're good at that.
Yeah.
There you go.
But what I'm saying is that how many undercovers are going to sell their car
Right.
or say they sold their car?
Did they want to buy it from you? Any of those guys?
No, no. If they did, I would have sold it to them because it was in my name. So
You got to pay for your own training. You got to pay for your own apartment. Got to pay for your own UC. Did they actually pay you at the FBI, or did you just work for free all those years?
in the beginning, almost for free. Believe me. Back in the day, when I say back in the day, you didn't get paid. They didn't get paid for working holiday, undercover. Look, you're working undercover. You're working in deep cover, so you're working 7 days a week. You're working around the clock. You didn't get paid for weekends. You didn't get paid for holidays. You just got your regular pay. And then finally, actually, it was my contact guy who was an MIT graduate, so he had some brains, right? He said, "This is BS," you know. So he did research and he found out this is not a government, mandate. This is an FBI thing. So he got it where when you worked undercover, if you worked a holiday, you got paid for the holiday, or you know. But before that, no, you got your regular salary, no matter how many hours you worked.
And when you were working then, I know that they have what they call AUO now, administratively uncontrolled overtime, an extra 25%. Did you get it back when you were working in the day?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but really the setup for this, what was the hardest part during that 6 years? Was it the first 6 months, the middle of it, the last, in terms of the impact for the family and for you?
Probably near the end. Uh, my wife was in a real bad car accident. Um, it was about the year before the operation ended, and she was hanging on there for a while. And I wanted to uh, just get out of the operation. Uh, but there was we were so close to everything because I had infiltrated to the point where nobody had infiltrated before. I was, a well-respected member of the Bonnanos. Um, so I continued in the operation, but it was the last year. Yeah.
That's tough. And was she still on the other coast?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. She was still, a few thousand miles away. Yeah.
None of the kids were involved in the accident, were they?
No, huh?
Yeah.
No.
So, how did you handle that?
Well, in the beginning, not too good, I mean, I was ready to just chuck it uh, because I had three kids, and she was hanging on, and uh, it was tough. It was tough.
Who convinced you to hang in there?
Well, one of the individuals I had, it's funny how you get some friends that tell you, "F it, forget it." These are in a bureau, and then there's a couple uh, that say you got to hang in because of how far we are, and you know A, B, C, and D, and uh, so you got both. You're getting tongue from both sides. Yeah.
Was the decision ultimately yours to make, or was that made by headquarters to say, "Look, you're staying on the op. You're staying on the."
No, it was mine. It was mine. Yeah, yeah. That's one thing I can say about the FBI. I mean, when I was in, and I was involved in the undercover program, it was strictly up to the undercover whether when they wanted to get out. When they wanted to get out. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I haven't been involved in the program now for a while, so I don't know what the hell they do. Uh, but when I was involved, it was the agent's decision whether he or she wanted to get out of the operation.
When you grew up over in Jersey, and now when you're working undercover, did you ever run into anybody you grew up with that was part of one of the families?
No, actually, I never grew up with any. I mean, I never ran into anybody uh, that I grew up with. Although a couple of the guys that I grew up with turned out to be made guys later on in life because their fathers were made guys. But I never ran into them when I was under, because these guys kind of stay to their own territory. The Jersey guys don't invade New York. Or if you're in Brooklyn, very seldom do you go outside of Brooklyn. You don't go, or you didn't back in the day. Uh, you didn't go carousing in Manhattan. I mean, that's the way it was back in the day. Yeah.
Hey, everybody, one of the reasons we're not just diving in, hey, let's tell the story, because I know you've told the same story 1,000 times. We wanted to get just a little bit
Yeah.
of a different take on this too, because look, everybody knows the whole process you went through. Everybody knows Johnny Depp played you in the movie, right? But it's the other stuff that a lot of people don't realize, and that's kind of what we wanted to dig into. Is that during this time, when did you ever have a doubt yourself that you were crossing the line? Is that, hey, look, I'm buying in too much into my own legend, into my own UC role, that I need to step back? Was there ever a time to where you had that kind of thought?
No, there wasn't.
Why
And
not?
because I think, well, not that I think, because it's it's the way I think. I have, I stay focused on the task at hand, and uh, I have that. And again, I say, well, you're patting yourself on the back, but hey, I did this for 27 years. Uh, I have that mental toughness that when I want to do something, I do it. And I look, I I know the lines that I belong in, and but the answer is no. I never once thought about, boy, this is a good life to get into, uh, cash and dash, and no. Um, I
How
always
did you
was able
handle
to.
it? I'm sorry. How did you handle it though when you were presented? When did they ever try and test you by having you do stuff to say, look, if you're really one of us, you're going to go out and do this, clip a guy, or break a guy's legs, or do anything like that? Was there any ever kind of test of your loyalty?
Well, look, you don't infiltrate the mafia and not do some stuff that's outside the law, outside the land, the line. But you know what you're going to do and what you won't do. I mean, I'm not going to clip somebody, you know, uh, just to prove myself, in an undercover operation. I mean, that wasn't going to happen. Either you get out of it or you walk away from it. Uh, Other stuff that uh, that you do that's illegal. Yeah, but it's not hurting anybody. You know what I'm saying? That's why when you pick your criminal profession, you can't say that you're a leg breaker, because then you're going to expect to break legs.
But you being a
That's
car thief, it's like if you steal a car, hey, it's like you say,
Yeah,
that's a very low chance,
yeah.
low risk crime.
And the reason I went into the 6 year one as a jewel thief is because not many jewel thieves are in a can for murder, and plus it's a profession that you can do by yourself. You don't need a gang to rob jewelry, and uh, you could always bring jewelry around and say that you pulled a heist out the airport or somewhere. So, yeah, like you said before, Morgan, there's a lot of preparation that goes into a successful undercover operation. And a lot of times, that's why some agencies or some police departments aren't successful, because they don't spend the time in the pre preparation for the operation. Maybe because they don't have the money. I mean, I spent I went to jewelry school to learn about diamonds and precious gems. I
Dang.
spent time with
Do you have to pay for your own jewelry school though?
no, the bureau paid for
Oh,
that.
thank God. All right.
You know what I'm saying? So I learned about diamonds and precious gems, and when I felt comfortable, that's when we actually started the operation. Once, so that takes money. Uh, Going out and getting a good apartment took money. Going buying a car took money. And local agencies, they don't have that kind of money. That's why you guys did a lot with local agencies, right, Steve? As far as
Yeah.
you see, because
Because you can
we
bring
got
in the resources that they
yeah,
can't. But
we
they've got
could
the
bring
local
in
knowledge. They got a lot of the local contacts. They know what's going
right.
on.
Right.
But speaking of preparing for this, doing the whole workup for this, how long do you estimated you took between like going to jewelry school, getting your legend done, backstop, getting your stuff? How long did you prepare before you actually initiated this operation?
Probably 4 to 6 months, maybe.
Wow.
Maybe,
Wow. both,
yeah,
both more. But that's a lot of planning. I mean, you're
It
talking about
is.
you want to take down a big organization. You want to go after people. You just can't do it by coming in one day, go, hey, I got this idea. Let's go do this. Okay, let's start tomorrow.
yeah. And don't forget, I couldn't say uh, that. Hey, I grew up in Queens. Yeah, where? And they go check. Or I grew up in the Bronx. Uh, I had to be somebody from out of town. I had to be somebody from Miami. So I knew Miami. I had to be somebody from California. You know, uh, so you have to get all of that squared away. Exactly where you say you were from. If you're lucky enough to infiltrate. Remember, I didn't have an informant introduce me to anybody. This was cold entry. So I had to connect with guys and get them to believe me and buy me. It wasn't where I had an informant say, "Hey, this is my cousin," or this is a guy I knew, or and and I wasn't flashing a lot of cash around. That wasn't the style. I was just a knock around guy, and that's it. And I just happened to be a guy that stole jewelry, stole art, uh, and that was my background. I didn't have an informant that brought me around,
How long did it take
introducing me.
you to with that? You're like salespeople who cold call. You just pick up the phone. You got to dial for dollars. Smiling down. Did you have an idea where you wanted to target? Did you have an idea where you wanted to go, or is it just one of those things? We know these guys are hanging out here, so I'm just going to go in here and we're going to start. Did you have any intelligence, I should say, or something like that beforehand that says, "Hey, here's where we want to target. Here's where we want to go."
Yeah, we had several bars and restaurants that we knew that these people hung out, and that was the idea. Go in, have a drink, have a meal, and hopefully get in conversation. I probably did this for the first 5.5 months, 6 months. Never talked to anybody, but I knew the people that were there. You know what I mean? I knew that these
These were the
these
right
people,
people to be hanging around.
yeah, these were the people. And I was lucky enough that I made conversation with a bartender, and that's another thing too, is that uh, you have to know your enemy. You have to, when you're doing cold entries, you got to know your enemy, because if you don't know your enemy, you're not going to defeat your enemy. So you have to uh, like the mafia. Now, the mafia has rules and regulations. Some will get you killed, some won't. And if you're an undercover, it's good to know these what their rules are to keep yourself alive and to help you infiltrate. Uh, so one of the rules is you don't fool around with a maid guy's wife, daughter, or girlfriend. If you get caught, if it's the wife or girlfriend or daughter, and you're not doing the right thing, that'll get you killed. Another thing is certain phrases. you know how you talk, how you phrase certain things, uh, lets them know uh, that you're a street guy. You know what's going on, and that's how I made my entry.
What's an example of something like that? What's one of the ways that you talk to let people know you're the real deal?
Okay. I'm hanging out in this Lucchese joint, right? Uh, once a week, these guys would be in there, and I don't remember if it was a Wednesday or Thursday, with their girlfriends, right? And they all have dinner. So I always would I'm at the bar all the time. And after a few weeks, uh, the whole crew is there. One guy is missing. One guy's missing. But the girl he was with is there. So I'm at the bar, and this young lady gets up, goes to the ladies' room, comes back, stops by, and says, "Hi." I say hello. She walks back. Now the first thing I do is I call a bartender over. Now I know the bartender's name is Charlie, but I've never been introduced to him. So I don't call him, "Hey Charlie, come on over here," because I've never been introduced to him. So I wave him over, and the first thing I say to him, "I want to go on record." I didn't ask that young lady to stop and talk to me. I did not initiate conversation with her. Go on record is a mob term. Okay. So this happens maybe three times, and each time I call him over and say the same thing, you know. So at least now he knows that, hey, this guy's got some street smarts. And like the fourth time, he finally says to me, "Hey," he said, "look," he said, "if you want to talk to her, you can talk to her. Her boyfriend went bye-bye."
That's a euphemism, right?
Yeah.
I can figure that one out.
He didn't take a trip.
It's not he went to Disneyland.
And so wind back just a little bit. One of the reasons you're saying I want to go on the record, is that because you were just in the off chance that she was the wife, girlfriend, or daughter of some made guy? You were going on the record to say, "Look, I didn't do anything disrespectful. She stopped to talk to me."
Exactly right, because she was always with this guy every week. But this is like the third week that he wasn't around. Exactly. So, hey, I did not disrespect anybody in here, And then finally he says, "Hey, if you want," the guy went bye-bye. I said, "Okay."
So now, was the bartender connected in some way, or was he just the bartender that knew what was going on?
No, he was a connected guy.
Okay.
So now he finally, with this, now he says, "Hey, my name is Charlie." And I say, "Hey, my name is Donnie." Now that's another thing too. It normal people, you introduce yourself by what? Your first and last name. Here, it's your first name or your nickname. They don't say, "Hey, my name is Donnie Brasco." He just says, "My name is Charlie. My name is Donnie." And so we start BSing, and that's how we got into conversation. And then one night he asked me, he says, "Hey, you like to gamble?" I said, "Yeah, okay." He says, "When I close up, I'm going to an after hours game. You want to come?" "Sure." And that's how it all started.
But you just brought out something important. The reason that you got to that point is because you spent the time coming in there over and over again, even though it didn't seem like you were making progress. You were making progress each time, because every time you come in there, you show the right kind of respect and you keep showing up. Charlie starts lowering his defenses to where he's all of a sudden he starts thinking, right, like, "Hey, you're an okay guy." Maybe because it's a big step to invite a stranger, somebody you just finally knew their first name, to go gamble somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. But it wasn't right away. I mean,
That's
it was
what I mean.
after
It took a while.
Yeah, it took a while because, now at least we're in conversation about sports, about the city, about whatever, uh, so, but the way these guys operate, when I go to the game, he doesn't introduce me to anybody there, but I'm with him. So, it's good,
Now you're being noticed.
Yeah, being noticed. And then, and we never discussed anything illegal. All right. The only thing illegal was the game. So after a while, now I figure, now's the time to set the hook, hopefully. So I come in one night and I got a packet of diamonds, right? I don't tell him what's in this envelope. I just put the envelope on the bar and I say, Charlie, I say, I need, X amount of money for this envelope. You think he can do anything? He just takes it and says, I'll try. He doesn't even look at it. Couple weeks go by, comes in. He says, Donnie, somebody left this envelope for me. Put it in my pocket. I get back to my apartment and it's what I asked. Now, what does he know? He knows I'm a thief. Why? Because I'm not dealing in Tiffany prices. I'm dealing in swag prices. So now when we go to the game, he introduces me as Don the jeweler. Now he knows. I never told him I was a jewel thief, but why else would I have these diamonds? So that's how it.
You
That's
said
how
an
we.
interesting term. You said, not a Tiffany thief, but swag. So, what's the difference in price between the two? What's the difference in perception between the two?
Well, Tiffany's. It might be $10,000. If it's swag, it might be I don't know 5,000, 4,000, because swag is stolen. So
Right. So yeah, so you're dealing. So and the other thing too, it's kind of it would have been an insult for you to open up the envelope and start counting money in front of him, right? It's like that's
oh,
kind
of
of the mutual
course.
trust.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
So tell us about the success of the hook. What did that get you from that initial exchange of diamonds for cash?
Well, it got me introduced to uh, made guys at the card game. Got me introduced to a Colombo guy uh, who start talking to me and invited me out to his place, his store, social club in Brooklyn. So I got in with the Colombos, hung around with them for a few months, and then I got into a physical confrontation with a Colombo guy, and I had to leave there uh,
Was that
because I couldn't.
intentional or unintentional getting into the altercation?
Well, it was unintentional, but it was the only way I could save face is by getting into a physical confrontation with this guy. Uh, I couldn't lose my respect or my credibility, and if I didn't do something, I would have lost both. But I knew I couldn't go back there with these guys. Uh, so I basically went to the head of the crew, whose name was Chili, and you know I told him, look, Jilly, no dis, and everything with these guys is respect, and so you have to know that. I says no disrespect to you, Jilly, but I can't be coming out here every day because this confrontation is going to escalate, and I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to come between our friendship. And he said, I understand, Donnie. So that's when I hooked up with a Bonnano guy by the name of Tony Mirror, who I also had met at the game, and started hanging around with him, and that's how I got in with the Bonnanos.
So this is one of the stories that you told Javier and I. I think probably the first time we ever met, we were sitting around swapping stories, and you came out of that room. So you got called into a meeting, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And that's one of those where you don't know if you're going to walk out.
yeah. What happened was is that these guys were this crew they were hijackers uh, and burglars, pretty good. Uh, so basically, these two guys had just gone out of the can one was a made guy and one wasn't. One was an associate like I was at the time. Uh, and I go back to one of the rules of the mafia is you never lay your hands on a made guy. You can't touch a made guy in a confrontation. That'll get you killed. All right. Uh, so these guys get out of the can. Um, they want to set up some scores. So we go case some places, and being a jewel thief, I got to know alarms. I got to know uh, safes. So we go case, and I tell them I can't defeat that alarm system. Again, you have to be a real person, no matter what your expertise is. So they okay. Another one, I tell them I can't. I can't do that safe. The only way I can get into that safe is you got to blow that safe. So now these guys are ticked off because Jilly's telling them what a great guy I am, what a great thief I am. So I come to the club and one day, and Jilly says, "Donnie, let's take a walk and talk." And he says, "Frankie wants to have a sit down." And I said, "Over what?" Well, I told him what a great guy you were, and you turned down two of their jobs, and Frankie wants it. I said, "Okay." So we go in the back room of Chili's club, locks the door. Frankie puts a gun on the table, and he said, "Donnie, unless you convince me that you're as good as Jilly said, the only way you're going out of here is rolled up in that rug." So again, the questions, where you're from, all right, I did time in Miami, did time out in California. Tell me who you stole with and you thieved with. I said, "I'm not giving you the names of anybody." I said, "You just got out of jail. How do I know that you guys,
aren't working off a beef or aren't cooperating?"
didn't turn. I said, "I'm not."
Joe, real quick here at this point, before you go too far in, I want to kind of get a real sense too. As you're doing these operations, are you wired? I mean, how do you do your ops plan? Do guys know where you are at this time? Or are you just out there in the wind by yourself?
I'm by myself. Yeah, yeah.
So you go into this sit down, and it's just Joe
nothing.
Pistone.
Just me. I had the only time I had surveillance was when I was going to a meeting after 3 guys were killed, and I was pretty sure that I was going to get a contract to kill somebody. I had a transmitter on. That's the only, uh, any other tapes were telephone.
Okay.
I recorded a telephone.
So how'd you talk your way out of this then? The gun's on the table and you got to convince him. What's your story?
Back and forth, and you never admit to anything, and you just you always want to go on the offensive. You never want to be on the defensive. Finally, after about 4.5 hours, Jilly finally says, "Hey, that's it."
Did you get a bathroom break?
No pee break.
Oh man.
Jilly says, "That's it. It's over." Donnie's been with us for several months, and he's Now my problem is these guys called me out, so I can't shake their hands and say, "Hey, I realize your concerns." The only thing they understand now is a physical confrontation. I got to be pissed off. I can't, So Frankie, I can't do anything to Frankie because he's a made guy. But the other guys, Patsy, I can whack him because he's not a made guy. So as we get up, I deck him. I just start wailing on him because I got to be pissed off. I got to be, that's the only way I save my credibility and respect. And then they break it up, and that's when I tell Jilly that I can't come around here anymore.
So from a physical standpoint, was he about your size? Were you smaller than him? Who was the bigger dog in the fight here?
They were all about we were all about the same size, 6 foot, 180 pounds, 185 pounds. Uh, but while I'm wailing on him, Frankie's wailing on me. But I can't do anything because I can't hit him because he's a big guy, you know. So
How did that end up? Did that get you the amount of respect or save you respect you were hoping it would? Is that what was
well,
expected of you to do? Is to smack this guy around based on what he accused you of?
yeah, of course, because if I don't, it's why isn't Donnie pissed off? He was just called out, you know. So now your respect goes. Once they lose that respect for you, you're done. Uh, so and that's when I hooked up with the Bonannos, and it was a good thing that it happened uh, because I don't know how far. Well, I probably would have went far with the Columbos too because these guys were wired in, but uh, the Bonnano guys were, Mira had just gotten out of the can, and he was pretty wired in with as a Bonnano guy. Yeah,
So, how long into this operation are you at this point? Are you months, a couple years in when this happens?
probably probably 9, 10 months, 10 months, yeah, 11 months, yeah.
Okay, because like I said, I know there's a lot of stuff, and we hadn't really Murph and I hadn't talked about it, but as we were talking to you, everybody just wants to talk about the story. How did you become, And like I said, I kind of wanted to dive into the other stuff because the thing is, let me tell you what, dude. You talk about a grande set of huevos. You're out there by yourself, going to a sit down, and they put a gun on the table, and the only thing you got to save your ass is your ability to talk your way out of it. I mean,
Yeah, I never carried a gun during this operation. The only
so
So
time
he,
I car- the only time I carried a gun was the guys that I was with, the Bonannos that I was with, whacked 3 other Bonanno guys, capos. So now there's a shooting war in the Bonanno family. And Sonny Black, who was my capo at the time, gave me a gun to carry. Otherwise, I never carried a gun during the operation.
now, were you ever searched during this time, like for the sit down? Did they pat you down, search you for anything?
No, because at that time I was pretty much in with Jilly and his crew, you know. So no. But in the beginning, I was, you know, they give you a hug and they go up and down your back and to see if you
It's
got
they don't. It's not that they like you. Hey, come here.
you
He'll
know
pat you down.
yeah. So and with the Italians, every time you go to the club, you got a hug, you got a kiss, and uh, so the time I did carry a recorder, I went to Radio Shack and I bought a mini cassette and I had it in my sport coat pocket, or I had it in my boot. Um, but I had no uh, on a
No
daily
FBI issued stuff on you anywhere.
no a daily basis, uh, nightly basis, no surveillance.
Now, did you have to make contact with your handler on a? I mean, what was your pattern for establishing that you were still alive? That to do your check-ins, was it just by phone, or did you guys physically meet too?
I would meet him once a month to get money, to get cash. Uh, but basically, it was telephone. And the only time I would call him was if I had information of value, I would regurgitate it to him on a telephone, and he would reduce it to paper. And what I mean by information of value, if I knew or thought it was valuable intelligence information or information about a crime that could be used, in a courtroom, uh, Otherwise, I didn't just call them every day to say hi, how you doing. I had to have something to regurgitate to them that was of importance.
So, what about daily? So this constituted then your documentation during the case is you calling your handler and say, "Hey, here's what's going on." In other words, you're not sitting down writing any kind of reports on a daily or weekly basis and sending them off to FBI headquarters.
No, that was his job. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And sometimes I wouldn't talk to him sometimes for maybe a week, 2 weeks. If I didn't have anything important, like I said, what am I going to talk to him about?
And I love the way that we're doing this interview because you've been interviewed so many times. You got books out, you got the movie out. People can find out the story about Donnie Brasco in a lot of different places. I love the way we're doing this interview. But what brought this to it? What brought your investigation to an end? Why did it stop? Were you just fed up with it?
What happened is that in the beginning, when I first got with the Bonnanos, I told you I hooked up with Tony Mira. Tony Mira goes to jail, and then my mob mentor or partner was a guy by the name of Ruggiero, Lefty Ruggiero, another Bonnano made guy. So I start hanging around with him, Little Italy. Our capo was a guy by the name of Mike Sabella. The boss at the time was Carmine Lilo Galenti. They whacked him. All right. They make the boss a guy by the name of Rusty Rastelli, who's in jail.
When you say they whack, who's the they in this whacking?
Mm-hmm.
That for Galente?
Yeah, who did the whacking?
It was some Bonnano guys. And with the consent of the Gambinos, because you can't whack a boss without the okay to other bosses in the
So,
other
what
mafia.
conditions had to be in place for them to okay the whacking of one of their own bosses? I mean, was this guy? What offense does a made guy like that make to make him eligible for the death penalty?
One of his discretion, but he controlled all the importation of narcotics into the U.S. for the mob, and he wouldn't share any of this with any of the other families. He was the biggest importer. Okay, and plus he wanted to become boss of bosses, so to speak. So that's why they whacked them. So what they do then is they put me and Lefty Ruggiero under a capo by name of Sonny Black Napolitano in Brooklyn. So now we got to report to Brooklyn every day. A guy by the name of Rusty Rastelli's the boss, but he's in a can.
What does it mean to report to Brooklyn every day?
That you have to, whatever crew you're with, whoever your capo is, whoever your captain is, you got to report into him every day. So Sonny's Black headquarters and base was Brooklyn. He was a Brooklyn guy. So we had to go to Brooklyn every day. There were three capos in the family that were loyal to Galenti. They didn't like Rastelli, so they wanted to take over the family. So now there's a beef in the family. What happens now with this beef is they call a sit down, which is a meeting to settle the situation. When the three other capos show up, Sonny Black, there's another big capo by the name of Joey Messina, and the Sicilian faction of the Bonnanos, they kill these three guys. So now there's a war going on. Sonny Black gives me the contract to kill 4 guys who were supposed to show up. Only 3 showed up. He gives me the contract to kill a guy that didn't show up. So with this shooting war going on, that's basically why the operation was ended, because of the war, within the family.
Yeah, I was going to get a lot of a lot of lead was flying. So, but to Murph's point, that's what stopped it. But some prior to that, we don't want to gloss over it too much, but we didn't want to focus all our time on it. You became a made guy,
Well,
or did you?
No, I was proposed for membership.
Okay.
Sonny Black proposed me for membership in the Bonnano family. I was going to get inducted into the Bonnano family in December, but the FBI closed the operation July 27th. Now, that's the only time that I said, hey, let's not close this. I mean, I'm going to get inducted into the family in December. Let's go to December. Can you imagine the devastation when they find out they inducted an undercover FBI agent into the family? But the Bureau wouldn't go along with it. So I didn't get inducted. I was proposed for membership, though. I was going to get inducted.
Why the long wait? Is this just because they they expect some vacancies to happen, like more people are going to get whacked, or what?
No, what they do is they say open the books. They don't open the books all the time to make members. So that was just the time that all the bosses agreed to open the books for every family to induct members. And what
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
what happens is that, like, Sonny Black proposes me, so he puts my name before all the captains in the family, and they got to vote on it. They got to give you an up or down, and I got an up vote on everybody. So I was going to be made in December. Yeah.
Had you attended any induction ceremonies before that?
No, you
can't unless you're a made guy.
Unless you're going to get inducted, yeah, or if you're a made guy, yeah.
Had you had people that you worked with been inducted? Some of the folks towards the end, were some of the guys you're working with go through the ceremony?
Well, they all were. They were all made guys. Yeah.
No, I meant, but some of the ones that you rose up the ranks with that weren't made guys at that point.
No, they were made guys before I got in. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
What kind of
anybody would have been inducted at that time? They would have been inducted with me in December.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of? It's almost like doing a background check, right? So by that point, is there any additional background that is done on you when they propose you, or is it just simply because you've done your time, you've been there? I mean, you're going on 6 years now, and it's like, hey, this guy's proved his worth. He's done our stuff. Or was there any additional hoops or stuff that you had to go through to get proposed?
No, by that time, as long as Sonny Black and Lefty, they vouched for me, I was okay because, like I said, I had been with him so long. They had gone to the Columbos. They went to Chile and asked him about my time with them. And, everything was positive with him. So that basically was it. Yeah.
So you passed the background investigation.
Yeah, right. Had a good BI going.
Yeah, good thing you didn't spend any time on the applicant squad then.
You know what? So when this is all over, and I think I read there was over 200 indictments. Is that right? Does that sound right?
Yeah, I had 245 convictions.
Wow. Jeez.
That's what we had. Yeah.
I'm sure that once they saw your happy face in court and realized, oh crap, Donnie Brasco is really Joe Pistone. What was the fallout on that from the mafia?
Well, they put a $500,000 contract out on me, and they sent guys out to all the places that I had been with these guys. To California, to Florida.
Was this a multifamily cooperation agreement going on, or was there one specific family that had the hit? Just everybody was after you now?
It was put out by the commission, by the bosses. Yeah, all the bosses. Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, rewind for a second. Just during this time, when you had that sit down and the gun was put on the table, was that the closest you felt like you came to not walking out of the place, or was there any other incidents?
Well, it was a couple instances with I had with Tony Mira uh, after he got out of the can. Uh, he had put in a couple beefs against me with the bosses because it was all over jealousy that I was tight with Lefty and Sonny Black, who Sonny Black was one of the guys, the capos that was running the family, and I was tight with him. So Mira had put a beef in and said that I had stolen $250,000 in a drug deal, and that's one of the no-nos is you don't steal money from the family. So they had to sit down over that. If I lose the sit down, they kill me. But Sonny Black won it. So this guy he put three beefs in against me with three sit downs. That if Sonny Black loses them, they kill me. But he won. He won all three. And you know what a sit down is that uh, they bring their guys to lie, and you bring your guys. Well, my side wasn't lying because I never stole $250,000. But Mira brought guys in that were loyal to him that said uh, they were there when I stole them, when I took the money in the drug deal and didn't turn it into the family.
So how did Sonny end up winning the sit down then? I mean, is this going on like a trial? You have cross examination, direct evidence, or how does it work to when you
Yeah,
finally get to the point?
they present. Well, there's a mediator, so to speak. Uh, they present their case. Sonny presents his case. You know, both sides present their case, and then the guy that makes the decision, makes the decision. And once the decision is made, there's no appeal process. You don't spend years and waiting for an appeal. It's here's the decision, bang bang, that's it.
Move on.
So what was presented on your behalf that swayed the mediator to believe Sonny and win the sit down?
Well, Sonny just went through all the stuff about Mira, uh, you know, different things that he had lied about, etc. Uh, and
So he did
told
what a
Mike,
defense witness does to any prosecution witness, right? You basically walk them through all the lies they've done and say, "Hey, look,
yeah,
he's not credible."
basically, and then he puts down his case, and that you know, but the deck could be stacked. If the mediator doesn't like one side or the other, he's going with the other side.
Now, was
So
Did you
250,000 actually stolen out of a dope deal? Was
no,
250K missing?
no,
Okay.
no,
did you
First
ever
thing.
consider
unless they stole it. But
yeah,
I didn't know of any money missing. No.
of those three sit downs, did you ever consider, enough is enough? I'm getting out of this crap.
Maybe like after the
No.
first one, you're going, okay, what am I doing here?
Yeah,
Now I'm going back
exactly.
for a second, third, and a fourth time. This time the guy
And
puts a gun on the table.
the third time could be a
No.
charm,
Yeah.
We call that a
You
clue,
guys.
Joe. I mean, I just,
Yeah. You guys know you've been on a job. You know something? The only time I thought about danger was now, after it was all over, and you know, recounting some of this stuff, and you say, "Why the f did I do that?"
what the hell was I
What was
thinking?
I thinking? Yeah.
You
Here,
know,
hold my
what
beer. I'm going to be gone for 6 years. I'll be back.
what the hell was I thinking about doing that?
Well,
Especially by yourself. Like, you're out there. I mean, I'm sleeping at Sonny Black's apartment sometimes.
so here we are all these years later. Obviously they did not successfully carry out the contract, and I understand it was withdrawn because they realized killing a federal, especially an FBI agent, would probably be a significant blowback on all the families, correct?
Well, they discuss it, but we haven't had. I mean, look, do I think somebody's out there actively every day looking for me? No. Uh, what do you think about? You think about some cowboy that says, "Hey, man, if I whack Donnie Brasco, I'm going to make my name for myself in the mob." Is the mob going to give him 500,000? I doubt it.
Yeah.
They're gonna turn around and whack this guy and say, "What the hell were you thinking? If stuff has just
Yeah,
calmed down, we got enough
yeah,
shit going on, pal."
yeah.
But and you answered the question I was going to follow up with. But knowing that, you're still intelligently cautious.
You still showed
Oh,
up on
yeah.
this podcast with the hat and dark glasses on and a nondescript background, and we had to tell you we're not recording video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, where I reside, my neighbors, you know, they don't know my true identity and stuff. So
You know, and as long as I've known Joan, I don't know what city you live in, and I won't ask.
but it was a good ride. I mean, everything turned out good, knock on wood, you know.
Hey, but
That's what
hold on though. Last kind of thing. Let's kind of finish out with this. I want to talk about what you did. I don't want to make an assumption, but it had to hurt your relationship with your daughters, you know, with your wife, with your family, because you can't be gone for 6 years like this and not have an impact. What was the biggest struggle for you once you got out of this operation?
well, to get back to the house and think you're the man of the house.
They'd been doing it without you for 6 years, right?
We don't need you to be telling us, you know,
You're like a
A,
temp
B, and
employee coming
C.
in here.
You know. That was the toughest thing, you know. And the kids are pretty good. All my kids turned out good, you know. But that was the toughest thing is coming back and realizing, hell, they got along fine without me, and they can still get along without me, you know.
You know, there's one thing I want to bring up just before we finish this out because you know, I've sat with Joe for hours and hours and hours over the years, and just I love hearing his stories, and it's just fascinating what you did. But we had a couple conversations about the movie Donnie Brasco with Johnny Depp, and there's one scene in particular that really ticked you off, and I want all our listeners to know the true story about
All
that.
four of them. We want all four listeners to understand this.
That's right, and you know what I'm talking about. So
Yeah,
I'll just let you run
I
with
do, and this is when I give lectures or undercover schools, the first thing I tell them, how many of you saw the movie? And the hands go up, and I say, I never slapped my wife. That scene in the movie is Hollywood, and that wasn't in the original script, and that was put in the script later on, and I didn't know about it. And the day they were shooting that, I went ballistic, you know, about that scene being in there. But unfortunately, you know, the he's the captain of the ship, and you know, if he says it's going to be in there, it's going to stay in there. But again, I never slapped my wife in the movie or in real life. I mean, in the movie I did, but it's only in the movie.
Not in real life.
And that's when you told us the story. Maggie confirmed that 100% accurate. So it's
and after 6 years, if you had tried that, she would have knocked you on your ass, going, "Pal, we got along fine without you."
She's a tough Irish lady. She wouldn't handle that stuff. Believe me.
Hey, let me ask you a final. Go ahead, Murph. Then I got a final question. Yeah,
I just wanted to bring that up because I knew it was important to you, and we all know Hollywood won't let the truth get in the way of telling a good story.
Yeah. And you know that from your TV work.
Yeah, exactly. But I wanted the world to know the truth. You know, you did not slap Maggie; she beat you to death.
Hey, so Murph kind of brought it up. I want to finish with this last question. You have been on, I can't count the number of interviews you've done, TV shows you've been on. Let me ask you that first because I have a question that goes with it. So how many interviews do you think you've done about Donnie Brasco, whether it's like podcasts to radio to television, movies, books, things like that? How many things do you think you've done?
Oh my God, Morgan, I don't have the slightest idea. I mean, it's hundreds.
I ask you that to ask you this because we tried to do something a little different. We just didn't want to do the same thing. Tell us about Donnie Brasco, how you did it. What's the one question you've never been asked that you wish somebody would have asked you, or something, a point you want to make that has never been brought up, in these other things before. We tried to take a little bit different path, but I'm curious, is there anything that has never been asked of you about this that you want to bring out about your career or about Donnie Brasco or anything like that?
I can't think of anything now. I mean, I've been asked almost every question. The one question I was asked is that that I thought was kind of funny by somebody. Do you still have your kids? You know, and the answer is yeah. I mean, after I got done explaining that, it's the only wife I've ever had, and the only kids I've ever had. But no, I think I've been asked. I mean, everything under the sun. I can't think of anything that.
Well, here's one question you've never been asked, and this comes from the movie The French Connection. Have you ever picked your toes in Poughkeepsie?
Well,
that was Popeye
City.
Doyle, Gene Hackman.
Popeye Doyle, Gene Hackman. Yeah.
No, hey, well, let's finish out with this. Anybody's contemplating going into law enforcement, because it is a much different environment than it was for me, for you, for the other folks now. But if somebody wants to work, because I know you teach a lot of classes on this, but in this day and age, what's your advice for somebody who's thinking about, hey, I'd like to do this kind of work. I want to go into law enforcement.
Well, going into law enforcement, I think is tough now. In fact, I got a slew of family in law enforcement right now, from uniform to federal agents. I mean, I got a lot of relatives right now. I mean, your close relatives in law enforcement. And the one thing I tell them is stay out of undercover. I don't encourage anybody to get into undercover work. Not the way things go today. Look, it's hard to get any administrators to back you, and the fastest way to get into trouble is to work undercover, right? I mean,
it's a very different time now.
Yeah, that would be my advice. Is, even though I do undercover schools, I don't, I'm just there to give them points to keep them alive. I don't encourage anybody to get into the undercover field.
But hey, it's a realistic answer. So, look, we appreciate you taking this different journey with us, because we just didn't want to focus on the story and talk about the movie and meeting Johnny Depp. You've done that a million times. I think the thing that really humanizes this is, I think what was tougher on you, considering how much of a family guy you are, it was the time away from the wife and the kids. The work was kind of like, hey, I can do the work all the time, right? But like you say, getting that time back, missing the communion, missing the ball games and stuff, that's stuff that you live with for the rest of your life. And it's like, how do you make up for it? And I think you make up for it by being a good, decent guy like you are and doing the right thing. And regardless of how you got treated and then come back, it's like, I think at the end of the day, when they take stock of, who's done what, you're gonna come out well, my friend, because you've done what I can't think of anybody would do for 6 years.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
No, and I'll say, Joe, too, it's been a true honor and pleasure to have you on here. I know we've been trying to do this for quite some time. And, you're always energetic when we're exchanging texts and trying to set up appointments and everything. And I always get the thumbs up and the flag and the sunglasses. I love the emojis you sent with it. And he's got so many more stories, Morgan. I mean, just some of the stories about Johnny Depp and how that all came about and the relationships. Well,
we'll do it on another one.
We'll have to do a special Johnny Depp episode. Captain Jack Sparrow.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that.
I know he's controversial, but I love him as an actor. I think he's. I think he's phenomenal.
I'll tell you what. He may be controversial, but he's such a good guy.
Maggie told me some stories about it. I mean, and like you say, that's another time.
Well, we'll have to do that, because you know what? There's an interesting thing. Episode number 2 of ours was George Young, who Johnny Depp played in the movie Blow. So we have a couple connections now.
Yeah.
guests that have been on our podcast that Johnny Depp has played them in a movie. We just
That's right.
think about that. I just think of this as the day you almost caught Captain Jack Sparrow. I just don't have to. Well, hey, look, Joe, this is me saluting you, sir, saying thank you for your service to our country.
Thank
our
you. Be
citizens.
careful, guys. Be careful.
No, man, love you like a brother, Joe. Can't wait to see you next
love you guys
time.
too.
Don't you guys hang on. Everybody, don't go anywhere. Stay tuned for the debrief. I mean, what can you say? Dude is a legend.
The first thing that came to mind when you said that is, we told you so.
We told you so. We told you. It's like we warned you about Derek Maltz. We tried to warn you. We told you so. And look, we were kind of constrained for time, but trust me, we could have gone on with Joe for hours. Just the stories he has about 1 month of his work could be an entire series of podcasts. And the fact that this guy is out there, and when I mean out there, he is out there, no safety net. Remember the one meeting he goes into, no gun, and if he loses the sit down, he dies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what? And I don't think that we covered this, but I've asked Joe before, do you ever go back to New York City? He does. And he even goes back into the areas where he worked undercover. And he says occasionally he'll get recognized, but he doesn't linger in those areas. He goes in, does what he has to do, and gets out. But
hit and run.
Oh, yeah. And even at his age today, the man still got balls of brass.
That's why they called him Donnie Brasco.
There you go. Should have called him Donnie Brass Balls.
Well, I tried to. That's what But anyway, hey guys, but again, like I said, we hope you guys enjoyed this. We're bringing you high quality stuff. And this, look, when we say we bring you folks that have done stuff of legend, this is stuff of legend. To this day, he still teaches undercover. He talks to these guys about this. And imagine 6 years out there, hardly seeing your family. And that one wrong word, a slip up, failure to do something means your family may never discover what happened to you.
Right. And just remember, and I specifically addressed this with him, he did not slap his wife the way it depicted in the show. That was straight out of Hollywood.
Boy, and he came out of the chair when we talked about that. So
that's when he talks about it to you in person, he still gets pissed off. And Maggie's sitting right next to him when he was telling us the story. And he said, Maggie, you tell him, did I ever strike you? And she's like, if he struck me, he wouldn't be getting up right now.
That's right.
You go, girl.
The only two hits, me hitting you, pal, and you hitting the floor. That's the only thing that would look like. So anyway, we hope you guys enjoyed that. Like I said, Joe Pistone, freaking legend. But if you like that episode, head on over to Apple and Spotify. Hit those 5 stars. Give us 5 stars. We don't know how it works. It's magic. It's Disney. It's David Copperfield. It's David Blaine, Penn and Teller, all that good stuff. We don't know how it works, but it really helps us. And head on over to gameofcrimespodcast.com for more info about the show. We put a lot of our stuff up there, books, things like that. Also follow us on that thing they call social media, at Game of Crimes on Twitter, at Game of Crimes Podcast on Facebook and the Instagram. And head on over to paypal.com. Just use our email, gameofcrimespodcast@gmail.com or paypal.me/Game of Crimes, whatever it makes it easier for you to support the show. And Steve, you folks, if you'd been on Patreon, you would have known we were going to be talking to Joe Pistone. Our case of the month we just did about the Parkland shooting and the jury trial. We just got a ton of stuff over at patreon.com/Game of Crimes, don't we?
Absolutely. Come and check us out. Give us your comments. If you see things that you would like that we're not doing that you'd like us to do, or the things we're doing you think are screwed up, hey, we're open to constructive criticism. Just because we have a difference of opinion doesn't mean we can't be friends.
Why can't we be friends?
Why can't we all just get along?
Why can't we all just get along? All right. So if you want to get along with us, there's an easy way. Just head on over to patreon.com/Game of Crimes. Join up. Find out what all the fun is about. We have a ton of content, various content that you guys are going to love. But again, we want to bring this to a close today by thanking you guys once again for being our players. Thank you guys for listening to us. Thank you guys for supporting the show. And thank you once again for playing, as you saw in this episode, the biggest, baddest, most dangerous game of all, the Donnie Brasco friendly Joe Pistone made of legend, Game of Crimes.